5, there was also a stealth feature. They didn't talk about this on the PlayStation blog. The PlayStation 4 Pro Boost Mode. So does this matter? Here to discuss with me is Zach Sharp, also a PlayStation 4 Pro owner. Hey man.
Hey, yeah, I got the PlayStation 4 owner tag a little while ago, so yeah.
It's interesting because you talked about like your critique for this system for the PS4 Pro was that some games, like The Witcher for example, didn't run better on the PS4 Pro, while the PS4 Pro has way better specs than the regular PS4, and that seems to change right now. With the new PS4 update 4.5, I think it's going to release in early March, so we're looking at a March 6th or March 7th release date, if my prediction is correct. Anyway, so yeah, when you can expect this boost mode. But what it does is that games that haven't been patched with a PS4 Pro patch, so if the game, for example, Shadow of Mordor has a PS4 Pro patch already, this boost mode doesn't do anything, because yeah, you can't like boost something that is already boosted. So it will just look at games, for example, Bloodborne, a really popular example, Witcher, GTA, that haven't got a PS4 Pro boost like patch, and enhances that experience a little bit. So it gives them more frame rate options and maybe even a better resolution as far as I understand. So yeah, it opens up the bigger capabilities of the PS4 Pro to those games. Well, yeah, first they were just the regular PS4 versions you were running. I saw some comparison videos, for example with Bloodborne. They went to like this area, you see it right now in the video, where a lot of enemies spawned, and you were killing that. And on the regular PS4, it like totally hinked, and yeah, there were some stuttering and stuff like that. With this PS4 Pro boost mode, it ran way more smoothly. So it still had some hitches here and there, because it's still like some sort of software-based improvement. I think that if they really made a Bloodborne PS4 Pro patch, they could really go more in depth. But this is better than nothing, and you really see that it does run smoother. And even The Witcher also runs just better, like what you come to expect from a better piece of technology than the PS4 was. So do you think
I just wanted to mention that on there before you ask that question, because I'm pretty sure I know where you're going. On Polygon, they mentioned like a whole breakdown and everything, and they showed a picture of the interface that you'll boot up in system in order to enable it. And it says word for word, experience improved gameplay, including higher frame rates. It doesn't mention resolution or anything, just frame rate. For games that were released before the introduction of the PS4 Pro. So basically retroactively helping the Pro out with giving better performance for these older games without developer intervention. And then turn this off if you experience unexpected behavior, which is interesting.
Absolutely, because I mean, like I said, it's not like they really made this especially for the game. So it could be that, for example, the frame rate goes all over the place, like there's no stable frame rate anymore, or something like that. So that is interesting. So my question to you is, does this matter? Is this like, because a lot of people are saying, whoa, I'm now going to get the PS4 Pro. Whoa, this is amazing. But do you think this is like that big of a deal?
It is. And I'll tell you why. Because when it comes down to it, one of the biggest complaints about the Pro, and a complaint that I had, which for me it made no sense, and this should have been here at launch, because you have a stronger piece of tech. You have games with variable frame rate. You have games with variable frame rate with stronger tech that for some reason are not even gaining a single frame per second higher than the older tech. What the hell is going on there? Obviously, it was a software cap, and I think this is sort of what they're doing in order to correct that, and it also proves that. So a lot of these games that should have benefited from the Pro and got better frame rate, which a lot of people are like, why don't you guys just release a better console that's solid 60 frames per second, all the games, good experience. I think a lot of those people that had issues with the Pro because of that are going to see this boost mode and be like, okay, now I could buy a Pro, because now I'm getting better frame rates in games that I already own. On top of that, though, the new games that have Pro patches, or newer games, there's a lot of older games that have got Pro patches as well, those will look better. They will probably run better because they're actually optimized by the developers. It's not like a standard boost. And the games that are really old that don't have the Pro patches, I'll be able to play with better frame rates if they're a variable frame rate title. For example, like you mentioned, The Witcher, there's Project Cars, there's a good bit of games out there that are variable frame rate. And so this will obviously cause unexpected behavior because it's not the native way that the system, it was originally meant to run, and the way that the games were originally meant to run, that this will affect. However, when it really comes down to it, I think the only unexpected behavior you're going to see here is a bit more stutters. So like, for example, if it's a really, really high powered game that, uses a lot of resources, for some reason isn't that optimized to go to a variable frame rate, you might see a little bit more stutters here and there, but the smooth gameplay you see will be a lot smoother, and it will be a lot more responsive as a result of that. So I think in the end, this is a net positive. It should have been there from the start. It would have been a much better sell for Sony in this regard, because there was a lot of people online that were mentioning, we just want a 60 frame rate per second console. That's all we want. And we're already seeing with some of the pro patches and that target higher frame rates at 1080p. So now that there's this boost mode here for the older games, to retroactively sort of make these games a better experience on the Pro, I think that's going to definitely tide a lot more people into the ecosystem, especially once there's more sales that go on, like during the holidays coming up. So I think that's going to be a much easier sell for them.
I think the PS4 Pro is looking better and better now, and this is really, like you said, what they should have done at launch. But it's always like, okay, we can delay it with this feature and then launch it in March, or we can put it out during the holiday season. Okay, let's just do that. So that's probably why that still doesn't give them a pass, but that explains it a little bit. I would argue though that this isn't really that big of a deal, and that's mostly because all the upcoming games are already PS4 Pro supported. I talked about in a Horizon video. Of course, Horizon has an enormous amount of PS4 Pro support. It will really enhance the game a lot, according to Guerrilla Games, and from people that saw it running on the PS4 Pro. That it just doesn't cost a lot of effort to make this PS4 Pro game. The Helldivers developer said that it was 0.3% of the overall development cost was creating this PS4 Pro mode, and that's why we see a lot of other games also enhance or make it run well, or use the extra power of the PS4 Pro in their upcoming games. So then I think this boost mode is really for games that have developers that don't do this. So upcoming games that don't do it, because it really looks like all the upcoming games are PS4 Pro supported. So maybe some smaller games will then make use of this boost mode, or older games. And okay, older games like GTA, that's a big deal. But are you really going back to The Witcher with this boost mode? Maybe you haven't finished it yet, then it's cool. But I think that the owners of a PS4 Pro are hardcore gamers that probably, we are here sitting and we both have a PS4 Pro. I know we both didn't finish The Witcher 3, but I don't know if I'm ever going back to that game. But I can imagine that a lot of people that have these PS4 Pro already finished all those older games that are now boosted. So I don't think that this is like as huge to make you want to replay this whole game, because
I think it helps though, and I think it helps a lot, because there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily buy every single new game that comes out. They have a collection that they like to play, and knowing that their collection is going to run better on this system now definitely does ease their mind. Because for example, there's games like Wolfenstein The New Order that was based off of dynamic resolution scaling to maintain a stable frame rate. And what that basically means is, if for example there's a high effect moment going on in the game, it's going to go away from its native resolution, which I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we'll just use 1080p, and it might drop down to say 900p in order to sort of compensate for a lot of effects on the screen. With this extra power, it won't need to do that anymore, so it'll stay as native. It won't be jarring to look at as it sort of dynamically scales its resolution, and it will keep the frame rate that it was originally designed to keep. And then also, Avalanche Studios apparently had issues with Just Cause 3, and it ran poorly on consoles, and it didn't really fare much better after patches were released. But with boost mode, it's reported that it's a lot smoother, so it holds its target at 30 frames per second much more reliably, thus making the experience much more playable for people who own that game. So I think that games that had issues originally with certain games may see this as a feature and be like, oh, if I buy a Pro, even though I game at 1080p, I'm getting a much better experience even with my older games. Like, sure, the new ones coming up, those are obviously going to have Pro patches, but for the games that I had before that maybe I didn't really enjoy as much as I could have because the frame rate was poor or whatever, they could buy this console and experience a smoother frame rate. Do I think it is a significant amount of people? No, I think that it will boost sales, but I don't think it's gonna just completely light the world on fire. But it will be another thing that will ease people's minds heading into this thing, especially heading into holiday after they see E3, maybe even after E3. They might be like, oh my god, I need to go out and buy a Pro now, depending on what Sony does at E3 this year. And so it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how sales respond to this news once it hits fully and people actually get to see how well it does and everything like that. But I definitely think it's only a positive thing. I just wish it would have came at launch with the console, because there was a lot of people originally, and we even discussed it, why isn't this getting a Pro patch? Why isn't this getting a Pro patch?
Yeah.
What's going on here? They could have been like, there's a boost mode, like you're good, and a developer wants to add more on top of that, then they can, but your games are going to perform better on the system regardless. And that would have been a great message.
They still stealth-released this boost mode. I mean, it was really people that updated their PS4 with the new beta that saw this mode, as far as I know. So maybe they don't want to say to developers, we have this boost mode, because then the developers will maybe be, okay, then we will not use some resources to make this work. Well, of course, like I said, a real PS4 Pro patch for a game, it's better than just this boost mode.
I just think that they don't think of it as a big thing. I think that it's not that they don't want to advertise it, because they went to numerous outlets. Like on this Polygon article I pulled up, there was 2 updates. So obviously they're very responsive about talking about this. They want people to know about it. The press is immediately lit up and started talking about this because it's an interesting thing popping up within a firmware update. So when it really comes down to it, I think that this is a minor band-aid thing for older games. I don't think it's at all having to do with new games. Developers are not going to use this because they're already using this. All this does is allow the software limitations to free up the hardware and allow it to reach its potential. It's like with a lot of games, for example, a game I'm playing right now, Black Desert Online, it's heavily handicapped by the software, its engine, its optimization. So the developers, they need to fix that in order to free up the game to allow it to use my resources, because you can look at different graphs in games to see how optimized they are, how well they perform, and with Black Desert, it doesn't fully utilize your CPU, so most of your resources hang in there. It doesn't fully utilize even your GPU, so most of that's just hanging there, and yet you're still hovering just above 60 sometimes, when you should be realistically always above 60 in the 70s and 80s, especially for me with my particular hardware. So in that case, it really just comes down to Sony's like, we had a weird software limitation here, we're just gonna correct it. And now that they've corrected it, people are talking about it because it was such a silly thing to be there to begin with. But it's something that definitely will allow games that don't want to patch, do a PS4 Pro patch, to at least run better for people who have their collections and want to maybe get the system, but don't really see a lot of benefits. But now they might see, hey, my older games will run better, and the newer games that are out there that I own, they'll have better graphics and higher frame rates and maybe higher resolutions if they own a 4K TV, or they just want to downsample to their 1080p TVs. So yeah.
I mean, it's better than them not having this boost mode, right? So it's great that they thought about this and they put it in. Curious to see how it will. Yeah, because right now we do see some things, but maybe it will change a little bit. This is still the beta, so curious to see how it will be when this launches, and if Sony will push it a little bit, because then everyone already knows a little bit about it, but it's still pretty stealthy. Maybe they will also make a big deal about it, but maybe, like you said, Sony just simply doesn't think that this is a big of a deal. But thanks a lot, Zach, for discussing this topic with me. Of course, for way more gaming discussions, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you did, and of course